I'm going to let you in on another secret. I'm going to do something that I never do. I'm going to teach you a word in Hebrew. I tell every one of my students, don't ever do this when you're preaching, and I'm breaking my own law. This is a very important word. When we read about doing justice, loving kindness, and walking humbly, the Hebrew word at loving kindness is a word that I'll pronounce the easy way, Hesed. It actually has like a Hesed thing at the beginning, so I'm not doing it justice. Let's ask our Jewish friends to teach us. But the reason this is such an important word, and I want you to really remember it, is that God's whole character is Hesed. Every time you read in the Old Testament something about loving kindness, steadfast mercy, steadfast love, the actual Hebrew word there is Hesed. We don't have a word for this in our English language. Hesed is about a kind of covenantal loyalty that is so much bigger than the way we think about love or kindness. Those words are too small. Hesed is the kind of love that has walked with Israel through the desert, brought them out of slavery. The Hesed is the kind of love of a God who decided to create this huge world for us. Hesed is the kind of love of a God who came down to be born in a manger and live here with us, and then walk the path to the cross, die, be resurrected, and live again. That is Hesed. That is this open-armed love of God that we are called into. And this verse says that we don't get to just receive that, we also have to live that. And so when Micah tells us to do justice and to love kindness, he's telling us we do justice in the name of Hesed. He's telling us we love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, strength, and we love our neighbor as ourselves. This is what it means to do justice. To walk through the world with this kind of benevolent love in our heart that says, I'm not only committed to what's good for me, for my family, for my little corner, I'm committed to what is good for the world because that's what God is committed to. God has made this covenant with me, and I now have this covenant that I am supposed to not just be an I, but a we. And then we look at the second part. Walking humbly with God is tied to Hesed. Hesed is the key in the middle of this. Hesed and justice is how we live with one another. Hesed and walking humbly is how we live with God. How we allow ourselves to be filled up with this unbelievable, covenantal, self-offering love that God has given for us. This is who we have to be in the world. And this is why we don't want to talk about it in here, because it's way easier to go out to an election and to cast a vote for what's going to be better for me. It's way easier to cast a vote for the person that I think will make me feel better. But actually what we're being asked to do is to think about what is best for all. How will that impact how I live as a citizen out there? See, Jesus is not on the ballot and never will be, but we need Jesus followers to cast those ballots so that we can live in a world where we remember that the mountains remind us who we are. The mountains remind us we are small. We will live through a good leader and a bad leader. We will live and continue on, and God's faithfulness will walk with us because God's covenantal love, God's Hesed, created us, sustains us, redeems us, and walks with us into the future, whatever the future will hold. This is a very big election that is happening this week. Next Sunday, no matter what happens this week, when we gather next Sunday, about 50% of our country will be upset. No matter what happens, millions of people will be in deep grief, anger, and fear for what is going to happen next in our country. No matter what happens, that is the world we will be living in. And so we have to remember, no matter what happens, God is faithful. And our call is still the same, to do justice, to live as people of Hesed, and to walk humbly with God. Remember I said this because next week the sermon is on gathering for healing. That's already been said, no matter what happens this week. So that's not a referendum on whoever is elected. That is the reality that we will live in. We have to be people who walk in healing, no matter who our leaders are going forward.